This is the Happy Families podcast. Actually, it's not anymore. Stop the music. We're going all over again. This is now the Positivity podcast. I've made some changes to my website. I've made a few changes to the way this podcast is going to be running, and in a few weeks you'll start to notice those changes. But let me start that intro again. Hello and welcome. This is the Positivity Podcast. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson, and this podcast is the podcast that's dedicated to making your life, your work, and your family happier. Today we're going to stick with the parenting theme because that's what you're so used to when you listen to this podcast. And in fact, the next couple of weeks I'll continue with the parenting content, but I'm going to start mixing things up a little bit after that. Today, talking about one of the most controversial parenting issues that I know of. It's the issue of pocket money. And why do I say it's controversial? Well, there's just so many opinions about it. Whether or not kids should even be getting it, if they're getting it, how much they should be getting, whether it should be tied to chores or academic success. And I'll tell you, some parents devise some pretty elaborate schemes for dishing out the pocket money. I should know, I've got one, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in today's podcast. Also in today's podcast, Ask Dr. Justin, looking at a mum whose toddler is keeping her up all night. How do you get your kids to sleep in their own bed? I'm going to answer that question for you shortly as well. And I've got a parenting hack that I think you're going to love if you've ever been in that situation where you give the kids the phone for a few minutes because, I don't know, you need to take a shower because it's been days since you've had a chance because life gets like that sometimes. And while they've got the phone, they've done things on it that have caused problems. Well, if you're an iPhone user with young kids that get to play on your phone every so often, I have a solution for you that I think you are going to love. That's all coming up on today's podcast. We're talking pocket money right after this.
Your conference is about to start. It's 5 minutes to go. People are inside taking their chairs. I wonder what's going to happen next. Perhaps you're worried about the guest speakers. What will they say? Will it be appropriate, relevant, and up to date? Will it be evidence-based? Will they stick to time? Is it going to be boring? You want to be sure that the information at your conference will tick all your boxes and give everyone the stuff they want to learn. You want people to come to you at the end of the day and say, wow, thanks for organising today. I took so much away from your conference. Dr. Justin Coulson can help. He provides keynote speeches from 30 minutes to an hour and a half, workshops from 90 minutes to half days, and even day-long seminars. He speaks to school kids, professional educators, principals, and teachers who are working day-to-day in the classroom, right through to other professionals like lawyers and bankers who are parents. Because we all want happier families, happier classrooms, and happier workplaces. So, what's your next conference about? If you'd like to learn more about getting a speaker who will help your audience learn, laugh, and leave with practical tools that will empower them to be happier, more productive, and better parents, teachers, people, and if you'd like the credit for having chosen that speaker, visit justincoulson.com. For more information about booking Dr. Justin Coulson as a speaker at your next conference, justincoulson.com.
People tend to learn their money management skills from mum and dad. So what are we teaching our children about money? And what does the way we do pocket money teach them specifically about money and about our attitude to it? Well, there are so many questions to ask when it comes to pocket money. How old should the kids be before they get it? How much should they get? Should it be tied to doing chores, or do they just receive it gratis? Do we get to tell them what they're going to spend their pocket money on? What about when they get older? Do we stop giving them pocket money because they've got to go and get a job? Once they've got a job, do we have any say at all in what they're doing with their money? And when does pocket money stop generally? So many opinions, so many questions. Let me share with you what research says, and then I'll tell you a bit about what we do in my family when it comes to pocket money, because it seems to be working very, very well for us. Research from the Journal of Economic Psychology says that most parents are quite happy to go with pocket money, but there's a lot of contention, a lot of disagreement over whether or not kids should have to do chores to get the pocket money. It seems that parents are pretty well split down the middle on that one. Parents are also quite split about whether or not performance in school exams and on school projects should be financially rewarded. Some say yes, I say no. And also whether or not teenagers should be encouraged to contribute to the house through paying board or through other kinds of contributions, even if they're older and they're working. What parents do agree on is that kids need to learn about money, and it's up to us to make sure that we talk about it. Oh, I should also mention this. This was the other thing that I found really interesting. There's a fairly even split among parents who think that some parents think that it's okay to withhold pocket money as a punishment. And some parents think that it's okay for kids to make entirely their own decisions when it comes to their money. Other parents think, well, no, I need to have a say in it. So let's talk about it, how it all works out in terms of what kids are able to do. Data tells us pretty clearly that before the age of 6, kids have no idea what to do with money. Between 6 and 9, they start to get a little bit of a clue, but they're usually pretty spend happy. And around about by the age of 12, they're finally getting their heads around having a savings plan and having a bank account. And why is that? Well, the research tells us that kids struggle with the issue of temptation. Basically, there's very little capacity for delayed gratification. If they see something they want, they go and get it. They don't really get that if you spend what you've got right now, then you're not going to have very good spending opportunities in the future. They just think that the money's going to keep on coming. It grows on a tree in the backyard. Don't you know that? And it seems as though the biggest changes in children's saving behaviour occur somewhere around about the age of 9, and by the time they're 12, they seem to really have a good handle on it. So, what are we trying to do with pocket money? This is probably the most important question that we can ask if we want to get this right. It's going to have an impact on how much we give out and what the children learn about it. If we adhere to what we typically consider the Protestant work ethic, our kids are going to have to work hard for their money. They're going to earn it. They're going to learn that there's no free rides. But there are other ideas about pocket money as well. One of my friends doesn't give his children pocket money at all. His idea is, well, if you need money, I'll give it to you. He's pretty relaxed about it. He simply says, what's it for? And if it seems reasonable and he's got the cash, he's happy to hand it over. Now, I'm not sure that this teaches children to value money particularly well, but he's got a Master of Economics and he's doing fine financially, and I'm sure it's probably going to work out okay for him. My ideas are a little bit different. Before I tell you about those ideas, though, let me tell you what research says about how most parents view pocket money. My friend's a bit unique. There are 2 other ways of looking at pocket money in kids. The first is this. There are the parents who try to shield their children from any economic worries and responsibilities. These are the parents who don't even talk about finances in front of the kids. They don't talk about the big purchases. They decide it all behind closed doors. And this approach kind of goes along with that idea that economic matters are for grown-ups and children should be free of all those kinds of worries because they're only young once. And we call these parents regulators or protectors. Then there's a second group of parents who are really looking into how pocket money can educate their children. They're the ones who act on the assumption that children need to be trained to become economically independent in the future. And they think that it's really important that their kids learn how to budget and how to save and how to delay gratification, how to learn that if you spend the money now, there's not going to be any for later. So they'll often encourage their children to earn their own money so that they can learn the value of money while they're young. And researchers call these kinds of parents educators. Well, it's probably no surprise that in my family, we tend to favour the educating paradigm a little more, although I wouldn't say that I'm a strict educator when it comes to money, and I'll explain why. Well, first of all, pocket money in our house is not related to chores. Now, I know some people are saying, right, that's it, I'm ready to switch off. If the kids think that they're in for a free ride, they can forget it. But in my family, we focus on financial literacy and understanding. Now, that's a little bit unusual for educators. They usually link pocket money to chores to teach that you get what you work for. It's that Protestant work ethic thing. But in our home, not related to chores, you just get a certain amount of pocket money each week, and we want you to learn about how to use that well. Does that make sense? The second thing that we do is we set a budget with each child. So when they get their pocket money, they've got to actually work out what they're going to do with it. And what this does is it provides self-efficacy. It makes the kids feel like they can actually control to some extent what's going to happen with their money. So our budget for the kids goes like this. You get your pocket money and you save 50%. You donate 10% through charitable donations or tithing, and you can spend the other 40%. The third thing that we do is we set goals with the children, and this helps to control, it helps them to delay gratification and sets them up to control their own destiny. So Kylie's my wife, Kylie has an exercise book, and when she does pocket money each week with the kids, she sits down with them and opens up the exercise book, and here's how it looks. So there's an opening balance that shows where the kids were when we started the pocket money. This is where you're up to right now in the bank. So we put that into the budget. And then she adds up what income's going to be saved over the next term. So each term's usually 10 weeks. If a child's getting $5 a week, 50% of that is savings. So that's another $2.50 a week that has to be saved. That means that they're guaranteed across that 10 weeks to save $25. Then she says to them, how much more can you save on top of that $25? And the kids are expected to set a goal that means that they have to be careful with their spendings. Maybe they actually need to save some of their spendings each week as well over the next 10 weeks so that they can get the goal. Maybe they'll say, I'm going to get $40, which means they've got to find another $15 on top of their absolutely guaranteed put-away savings. And something that's really tangible for the kids is we get them to cross off each dollar as they save it. So let's say the goal is $40, we write down the numbers 1 to 40 in the exercise book, and as each dollar is banked, the kids cross them off. And so they can actually see themselves getting closer. It works a treat. The fourth thing that we do is we offer incentives, and this is to boost saving motives. I typically argue strongly against incentives, but there's a couple of exceptions. One of them is reading. If your kids are reading a book, you can offer them incentive and say, when you finish that book, I'm happy to buy you another book. And the second one is savings. Why would I say if you save money, I'll give you more money? Well, it gives them more of what they're already doing. It's a bit different to saying, if you do this, I'll buy you an ice cream. The two are really unrelated, but if my children are saving money, I can give them more money. You can't say, if you mow the lawn, I'll give you another lawn to mow. That's not going to be particularly motivating for them. Incentive for saving, though, is more opportunity to save and more opportunity to learn about money. And the kids get pretty excited about it. If a goal is reached by the date, what we do for the incentive is we give a 10% incentive. So if they had to get that $40 by the end of the term and they get there, we say, guess what? You get a bonus $4 because you reached your goal. Pretty simple. Now, I know that it might sound a bit complex when you think it through, but if you grab a pen and paper and write it down, it's really quite simple. The kids love it, and I've got to tell you, my kids are amazing little savers. They love crossing off the numbers in the book. They love setting the goal. They love getting the bonuses. And each week on Pocket Money Day, they get excited about sitting down with Kylie and going through it all and putting it all into their bank accounts. They actually don't like spending it because they love seeing their bank balance go up, and it's even more exciting when they start getting interest as well. Now, is this the best way, or is it the right way? Well, I probably wouldn't say that. In fact, that's probably being a little bit over the top. But it's something that works really well for us and aligns really well with what psychological and some economical research tells us about children and money and savings and motivation. So I'd love to hear from you. Go to justincoulson.com/podcast/5, that's like the number 5, and tell me, what age do you think is the right age for pocket money? And how much do you think is okay for kids at various ages? I'm really interested in your answers. Leave your answer at happyfamilies.com. No, it's not Happy Families. I got excited there. Leave your answer at justincoulson.com/podcast/5. And I'll be right back in a second with a parenting hack and an Ask Dr. Justin. What do I do when my child will not sleep in his or her own bed all night long?
We all love our children, but sometimes they can make life challenging, and we're all searching for the right answers. In the end, all we want is happy children and happy families. Dr. Justin Coulson is one of Australia's most respected parenting voices. His seminars have equipped and empowered thousands of parents to make their families happier. But sometimes getting to a parenting seminar can be tough. There's work and other commitments. Then there's the issue of the children and babysitters. Now you can watch one of Dr. Justin's seminars from the comfort of your own home and at a time that works for you. In this seminar video, available online now, you're invited to sit in on one of Dr. Justin's parenting seminars as he takes you from confusion to clarity. Combining parenting research with heartfelt stories, you'll discover the 3 essential keys to raising a resilient child and creating a happy family. You'll learn how to build a strong connection with your children, how to really understand them, and how to get discipline right. What your child needs from you, a seminar from Dr. Justin Coulson at justincoulson.com. Download this 90-minute seminar now or purchase the DVD at justincoulson.com.
For this week's Dear Dr. Justin, or Ask Dr. Justin, we have a 23, almost 24-month-old boy, writes BM. We cuddle him to sleep and he goes into his own bed around 8 p.m. Anywhere from, 10 o'clock in the night until 1 o'clock in the morning. He'll wake up and we then bring him into our bed. Mostly this works. However, he has a habit of playing with my wife's ear. Often it hurts her and keeps her awake. We've tried putting him back into his own bed, but he wakes up almost immediately and gets distressed. BM says we refuse to follow the cry it out method to get him to stay in his own bed. Are you able to offer some advice? Point us in the right direction on how to get him to settle on his own and stay in his bed all night. Well, here's what I can tell you, BM. First off, by the age of 2, our toddlers usually need between 11 and 12 hours of sleep every night. They'll usually go to bed between 7 and 8 p.m.-ish, and they'll usually wake up somewhere between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, that's going to vary from family to family. Additionally, children between the ages of 2 and 3 will still pretty much do best if they can have a daytime nap of something maybe around 90 minutes a day or thereabouts. And it's also quite normal in our culture, at least, for children around 2 years of age to be in their own bedroom and in their own bed. As BM has identified, little ones can be pretty hard to co-sleep with, especially once they're toddlers. They tend to move a lot. You've got to be a really funny shape if you want to be able to sleep in the bed with a toddler and get a proper night's sleep, and most of us are not that crazy, bizarre shape. They sleep sideways and upside down and around the wrong way, and it's very, very hard work. Ultimately, nobody does well when everybody's tired and asleep. So, there's 3 options the way I see it. Experts have 3 different approaches. The first is the hard line approach. This is the hard line, no coddling approach. Parents put their child in the bed, they close the door and they don't open it again until the morning. If the child's distressed, the parents just let them cry it out. And they do this in the mistaken belief that he's going to self-soothe. The reality is that he's going to be stressed. He's going to cry until he's too exhausted to cry anymore. He's going to learn that the world is hard and cruel and no one's going to be there to help. And there's even some significant questions about whether or not babies and young children can genuinely self-soothe in these situations anyway. I don't like it. I think it's horrible. I think it's absolutely unfair. In fact, I think that it really does border on abuse, even become abusive in some ways. And I'm really glad that BM has said I don't do that. The second approach is the I love you, but you're not coming out approach. This is where we are trying to encourage independence in our children. We're doing it gently but firmly. Parents are sort of being told in this situation by the experts who favour this approach to respond briefly but firmly to their child, explain the expectations, and then tell them to stay in bed and go to sleep. So what the idea here is that we're discouraging anything that could be interpreted by the child as a positive reinforcement. Once we've laid down the law, we lay in our bed and we suffer in silence, or we stand by the door and we hold it closed while our little one fights and wails and ultimately succumbs to this helpless exhaustion. Quite honestly, I know that it sounds like it's a little bit different, but I think that it's just as bad as the hard line crying it out. It's just that we're trying to do it gently rather than sticking in their bed, walking out and calling it quits. I think that it's staggering. I think that it's appalling that a range of experts ignore the various evidence that suggests that both of these approaches are unhealthy, and that there are so many, what would you call them, sleep trainers or baby sleep doctors that are out there that are saying that either of these things are appropriate. Unless you're a mum who is dealing with postnatal depression, you're not sleeping and your life is literally falling apart, I think that these approaches are just terribly damaging for our kids and we need to avoid them. There is a third approach. It's a much more gentle approach, and it's the approach that I favour strongly. Here's how it goes. We need to be highly responsive to our children's problems and do whatever we can to accommodate them and help them feel loved. So if your child comes to you in the middle of the night, you help him. But the way that you help is also really important, because gentle parents are not about having no limits. They're not about indulging their kids. They're just about working with their kids in loving, kind ways until they find a good solution. So as I've worked with a range of clients, most agree that co-sleeping with a toddler doesn't work. I've already explained why that doesn't work. So here's what I recommend. First off, be kind and be responsive anytime your child wants to be close to you. Rather than sleeping together in your bed, have a chat ahead of time before they come to you in the middle of the night, and agree ahead of time with your toddler that one of you will take him or her back to bed whenever they get distressed in the night. And then just lay in bed with your little one, or lay on the carpet beside the bed as he goes back to sleep. I often have taken my pillow with me when I've done this, and I'll lay on the floor with my head on my pillow and my arm reaching up onto the bed, patting my child back off to sleep. And once they settle back to sleep, stay there until they're in a deep sleep before you go back to your own bed. Now, sometimes they're going to notice that you're gone and they'll come back in, and you may have some interrupted nights, maybe for a week or two, maybe even for up to a month or two. It's unusual that it would go that long, but sometimes it can. I just think that's part of parenting, and that's part of the inconvenience of parenting. If you really want to love your kids like crazy, this is what I think works best, even if it is a bit inconvenient. He's only little, but even at this age, you can have conversations about his feelings, and you can explain what you want him to do, but make sure that you keep the pressure low. I think this is another thing that parents get wrong a lot. We start to get really controlling, really high-pressured, and all of a sudden, the kids start to get anxious about sleep. I wouldn't even make a big deal of it. I'd just mention, hey, you seem to be having a really hard time sleeping last night. Have a chat about it, and then say, I'll do whatever I can to make you feel safe. Always, always, always avoid bribes and star charts and rewards, because except in some really unusual cases, these often exacerbate the problem because it shines extra light on the problem, and it makes your little one feel like he's being punished if he can't succeed because he can't get the rewards, he can't get the stars, he can't get the goodies. And clearly he can't do that right now, so he's going to feel like he's a failure, feel anxious, feel horrible. And you might also consider some options like a soft light, a gentle music soundtrack on repeat, or maybe even a favourite toy to go to sleep with as well. I mean, look, there's no question at all that having toddlers who don't sleep, it's exhausting, it's inconvenient, and honestly, it's just plain annoying. We all know that. Everybody needs their sleep. We need it for sanity. The reality is, though, that this is probably going to be a fairly brief window of time. It's unusual that kids go through this for a long, long time. It does happen from time to time, but it's unusual. And in another handful of all too quick years, your son isn't going to want to be anywhere near your bed. And those really precious late night cuddles and comfort are going to be nothing more than just a memory of a childhood that passed way too fast. So we're looking really here for a patient, gentle approach. It can help him feel secure and ultimately help him sleep well. So that's my Ask Dr. Justin for this week. If you have any questions you'd like to ask about parenting or just about being happy in life, justincoulson.com/questions. You can either leave me a voicemail message or email me with your question. That's justincoulson.com/questions. Okay, up next, how to let your kids play with your iPhone safely at those times when you really need to keep them busy for a few minutes so you can get something done and not feel bad or guilty or have any major dramas.
Toilet training. It's a milestone that parents look forward to. What is the best way to toilet train our children successfully? Dr. Justin Coulson has written a no-mess, no-fuss ebook to help, called Toilet Training. Easy as 1, 2, wee. Written for busy parents, you'll whiz through a clear overview of toilet training without getting bogged in too much detail. At just over 20 pages, the ebook can be digested in under 30 minutes. You'll find straight-shooting answers about toilet training based on scientific research, like how to know when your child is ready to toilet train, myths and conspiracy theories about toilet training, and the most popular toilet training approaches and what science says about them. Some toilet training guides take longer to read than it should take to toilet train a child. This is the fast-flowing alternative to get your kids going at the right time, in the right place, and the right way. Toilet Training, easy as 1, 2, wee. Available at major online booksellers now or at justincoulson.com.
This is a parenting hack for parents who use the iPhone or the iPad, although I'm sure that some other devices, the Android devices, have got something similar. I don't know if you know this or not, but your iPhone has a setting that allows you to lock your child onto a screen so that they can't hit the home button to get out of it and go into all of your other apps. They can't even turn the volume up, which is fantastic if you're in a surgery or the shops and you need them to keep the noise down. Now, before I tell you about the hack, I'm not an advocate of handing the phone over to the kids to keep them busy. But there are times, like when you're in a doctor's surgery waiting room, where it's just really nice to be able to give the kids the iPhone or the iPad, and it works out as a quick, cheap little babysitter. Maybe you just haven't been able to have a nap for 4 days and you're exhausted, or you've got to have a shower because you haven't had one of them for 4 days either, or something like that. So, if this has happened to you, you've given them given them the iPhone, you've handed it over, and they've gone through your phone book and they've called the boss 10 times, or that time where you handed them the iPhone and they turn the volume all the way up in the middle of a church meeting or something like that. This is what we can use. It's called guided access. And what you do is you go into your iPhone settings, click on General, and then click on Accessibility. So into your settings, General, and Accessibility. If you scroll down, you'll see something called guided access. It'll be under the learning section in your accessibility component of the phone. And switch the switch to on. Once you've slid the lever to on, you create a password, and that's all you've got to do. Create the password once. That's it. So I'll go through that again. Go to iPhone settings, click on General, click on Accessibility, scroll down until you see guided access under the learning section, switch it to on, create a password, you're done. Then, when you want your child to use the phone, you go to the screen that you're happy for them to use, and you triple click the button, the home button. It'll ask you to circle on your screen any areas that you want to disable, and then you just use your finger to circle whatever you want to disable. You don't have to circle anything, by the way, or you can select some parts of the screen. Then you press the Start icon in the top right of the screen, and everything is disabled, including the home button. It's amazing. And then if you want to exit parent mode, you just triple click your home button again, type in your password, and that's it. Okay, I'm going to be back in just a sec with an announcement about a few changes that are going on here with the Happy Families podcast.
Are you pulling your hair out because your child won't listen, won't do what you request? Do you find yourself shouting at the children because you just don't know what else to do? Do you have a child who's aggressive or hurting you or his or her siblings? Or are you dealing with a child that is back-chatting or disrespectful? Are you finding parenting more challenging than you ever thought possible? Dr. Justin Coulson provides one-on-one parenting coaching via Skype or phone and can help you. With parenting coaching, you'll receive personalised individual guidance designed specifically for your family's unique circumstances. Find solutions to the parenting problems that are driving you crazy, effective discipline strategies where you can stop being the drill sergeant, a better relationship with your children, and a happier home where everyone looks forward to being together. For more details and a coaching package that will suit you, visit justincoulson.com/coaching.
Welcome back. Well, you may have noticed that the podcast has changed. The ads have changed. I'm no longer using happyfamilies.com.au. My website's been rebranded, and there's been some fairly significant changes all the way around. I'm still going to be sharing lots of information about making families happy. That is what I do. That's what I've built my brand around and built my business around. But I'm going to be calling the podcast the Positivity Podcast from now on. And I'm going to be focusing on how positive psychology tells us that we, as individuals, can be happier. I've got another couple of podcasts next week and the week after, all about parenting. I'm really excited to share them with you, and that's why I've decided to continue that content for a little while. And then there's going to be just a slight shift. I think that you'll still love the podcast. You're still going to find it inspirational and helpful and whatever else it is that you enjoy about it. Hopefully you'll still get that vibe, but we're going to shift from happy families to positivity. And I think that you're going to find that it's going to still be equally applicable, but not entirely about families. It's going to be about you as well. I'm also going to be telling you about some other exciting announcements in the coming weeks in terms of programs that I'm organising to have online for you and other great products that I'm about to be launching that I think you're going to love hearing about. But that's pretty much it for this week. I hope it's been a terrifically useful podcast for you. If you've got any questions that you'd like me to answer, go to justincoulson.com/questions. And I'll do my best to answer you in an upcoming podcast. You can leave a voice message there or you can send me an email. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, this episode, you can find the outline and the resource links in the show notes at justincoulson.com/podcast/5, as in the number 5. Also, can I ask you this? If the podcast is helpful, I'd be so grateful if you'd tell people about it. The easiest way to do that is just go to justincoulson.com/podcast/5. You'll find a pre-populated Twitter or Facebook post that you can share with your friends and followers to get the word out about the podcast. And I'd be even more grateful if you do what a handful of people have done now and rate the podcast on iTunes. As soon as you rate that podcast on iTunes, it increases the likelihood that people will discover the podcast. The ratings basically boost the visibility of the podcast. Other people get to find out that it's there, and therefore they get to find out how I can help to make their family or their individual lives or workplaces happier. And of course, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes as well. So that's it for this week. I'll have another podcast ready to go for you next week. Until then, remember, you don't have to be the best parent in the world. You just have to be the best parent in your children's world.